I have so much to talk about in here. There's so much detail throughout this entire home, but if I don't get going, we're gonna be here for like a week. 3 years in the making and the most ambitious project we've ever designed. This is Oxford Road. A home like this doesn't come to life without an incredible team. From the beginning, we worked with McEwen Custom Homes, and we had a big vision for this home, and they brought it to life. So many long hours, and you stand in this home and every single corner and transition is perfect. We also worked with Broadbent Architectural Studios from the beginning of this project, and they created these masterful architectural plans. We worked together in a collaboration to imagine the details and how all of these rooms come to life, and those bones are what gives us that amazing structure to build all of the interiors. The landscape architecture is also a huge part of what makes this home so special. Even standing on the inside and looking out, you can feel the design and how it's connected to the foothills of the mountain behind it. It takes a team, and it takes a team on the outside, and then it takes a team on the inside of Studio McGee. The entryway was designed from an architectural perspective to have this double arch effect. When you walk in, you look up these stairs and into the great room. And this paneling and plaster is a combination that you'll see in multiple parts throughout the home. We also did an extra detail that I absolutely love, and that is a large marble baseboard. We wanted to make sure that this space had history even though it's new. So we're standing on reclaimed floors from Italy. And I love that it gives you a rustic element against the dressier walls. The great room is really great. It has these soaring ceilings, and rather than doing contrast on the beams, we went through so many options for different stains and then decided to do a tonal effect on the wash of the beams and then do a wood oak casing on these openings surrounding the room. In every home that we design, we want to incorporate materials from the exterior and bring them inside. So we did the exterior stone on the fireplace and also brought in the blue stone onto the floors of the ingle nook. All of the windows were handcrafted in Italy, and they're steel throughout the home. The goal for this room was that it could be a family living space during the week, and then they could host a party for 50 on the weekends. Behind me is one of my favorite moments in the entire home. I wanted to design something that felt like it had always been there. So we recessed this built-in into the walls. We designed it to have these really beautiful pilaster details here, and we call this the family library. So let's head in to the actual great room. I will say the goal was calm, and we intentionally kept the color palette in this space pretty subdued, but then we wanted a little surprise of pattern, and then we mixed loungy furniture with dressed up pieces and found ones. That's the combination you'll see throughout the entire home. The fireplace has a really fun surprise. This tapestry, it's from the 18th century, and we hung it on a Roman shade mechanism so that when you push a button, it rolls up and reveals the TV. This beautiful curved opening detail that frames the fireplace makes an appearance throughout the home, and it's those little things that really bring room to room, give them their own personality, but also bring connection. This kitchen was intentionally designed with Broadbent architecture to feel a bit more intimate than the great room. The ceiling steps down. This is about the same size, if not smaller, than some of the other kitchens that we design in custom homes. And that's on purpose, so that it feels like, not like an airport terminal, and just feels like this homey space. The star of the whole kitchen, this range wall. You see that curved shape make an appearance, but this way we did it on the hood of the range. If you look really close, McEwen Custom Homes incorporated these little outlets that are integrated into the marble so you can hardly see them. And then on this back wall here, we did a custom officine golo range, and I love that it adds some color to the kitchen and a different materiality. So we have metal and the brass. Anytime we're designing a kitchen, the combination of finishes and materials is always a big discussion. Do we do painted and wood? Do we go dark? Do we connect it to the color that's throughout the home? Ultimately, we decided that the right move here was, with this being the heart of the home, we were going to carry that wood tone that you see on the openings in the great room and on the floors into this space and have it be all one finish. And I think it just really adds this coziness and simplicity when there's a lot of visual interest happening around this space. We connected the materials on the built-ins and then added some accents in different ways that speak to the kitchen. So you have that beautiful blue-gray color on the range, and then we incorporated that on the chairs. So you're not gonna believe this, but this is actually a performance leather. So it's very wipeable, but we just chose a high quality one so that it looks like real leather, but performs like a family of 9 needs. We also did a solid limestone table to change up the material. And I always look for shapes to mirror, and this bay window here has a curvature, and then we brought that curvature into the light. Our team sourced accessories and furniture from around the world. Our team went to multiple flea markets and antique fairs, and I love that it adds a little bit of playfulness and character. Now we're gonna head to the scullery, which is one of everyone's favorite rooms in the entire home. Believe it or not, it is about the same size as the actual kitchen. And this is really designed to be a working, functional second kitchen. When we did the tour for the family, the kids went in and they're like, this is where we're going to be baking. And I thought it was so sweet. So we always hide the pantry goods on the wall that you don't see when you walk into the pantry. So we did a wall for that. We did an island that feels more like furniture. I think it adds a lot of airiness and it has a more found feel. We did a Delft-inspired tile on all of the walls, inspired from the family's trip to the Netherlands. And then on the floors, we did this marble checkerboard pattern. And so we designed it to look like a rug. It's centered in the room and it has this double border detail and is really beautiful. We've talked about this hotel bell system a lot and has a very Downton Abbey feel. It was a really fun nod to history, and our client is actually gonna set these up so that he can ring his kids when it's time for dinner. This is something that's been on my wish list of design details. This copper pot rack system. It's filled with found and new pots, and then one of the finishing touches in this space is this commissioned painting of our client's grandmother, Grammy. Now we're going to head down the main hall of the home to the dining room and the craft room. This was a decision made with great care during the architectural plans process. And the idea here is that it can convert into overflow when hosting large gatherings. The architect actually had this space as an outdoor pavilion originally, but there wasn't a formal dining room in the home, and we decided to convert it into a formal dining room. I had this vision that James Mobley would paint all of these walls. So he flew in with his team and they hand painted this scenic mural on all the walls with these beautiful trees that look like they're just coming from the outside in. It is stunning. And then we did a massive dining table that did fit, thankfully, and we lined it with really simple chairs. I always love to create some juxtaposition with traditional and modern, and then we've mixed in antiques as always. Across the way is the craft room, also one of my favorite rooms in the home, and I wanted the mural in here to be a bit more playful and a little more colorful, but still feel connected to the dining room. So James and his team added some soft blues and greens and these little animals and critters everywhere. And then we incorporated braided glass to hide some of the craft supplies happening in here. And then the dining table, the craft table, that doubles as a dining table, is on casters so you can move it around. We did a color in here. I think it's fresh and playful, but also feels really sophisticated at the same time. And one thing we did in a lot of rooms in this home was if we had a backsplash or a tile, rather than just doing it up the back, we would wrap the whole entire room in the tile. I mean, the details in this home are so good. We even wrapped the windows with the marble instead of a wood casing in this space. We're gonna walk through the mudroom and into the conservatory. We have a marble drinking fountain, and this is the conservatory or the music room. And you're greeted with all of this natural light because of the clerestory windows wrapping around the room. Because we floated the sofa in the center of the room, we gave it some curved corners so it was an easier flow to walk around. Then our client wanted 2 side-by-side upright pianos, which is a request that we've never received before. The other thing too is you can't do a cabinet on the top of them or it messes up the sound. We framed sheet music of our client's favorite songs on this wall. And if you look closely, we matched the sizes of all the frames, but we mixed the frames and the mats. So there's a little mix and match effect happening. Now we'll head to the primary wing, past this beautiful staircase here. We had this nook under the stairs. And so when you're designing these spaces, I think it's really important to follow the shape that you're working with. So you notice that the height of the artwork and the shape of the chaise really follows that angle. Then we have one more stop before heading into the primary bedroom, and that is this office. We really intentionally tried to keep everything very tonal in the wood tones and then brought in color through the little accents and the ottomans. You walk in here and you just take a deep breath. It feels calm and light. The wonder behind me that the landscape architect designed. One thing we did in here is something that I love to do, and that is do different shades of a neutral. So we did plaster on all the walls, and the color is tinted. So it's tinted plaster, and it's creamy white by Benjamin Moore at 50% strength. So that's what's on all the walls in this home. And then the paneling and the trim in the home is that creamy at 100% strength. So you get a little bit of that shade variation. And then we did a different color on the ceiling, and that is Faro and Ball drop cloth. And we did that in what's called a semi-transparent stain, which means that you're getting a color, but you still see all of that beautiful grain happen through the wood. And I love that mix that you're getting classic materials, then something that feels old and historical, and the mix is exactly what our design style is all about. This space, it steps down in the ceiling height. I think that the Broadbent team did an excellent job of really mixing those ceiling heights, and our team did an amazing job of adding these details. There's these chamfered corners here, and then all sorts of beautiful details with this bead and then this panel here happening on the cabinet fronts. Then we did another repeat of that shape that you've seen throughout the house, but we did it on the corbel here with this little mini shelf. And then the star of the show is the solid marble tub. It was carved out of 1 block of marble, and it's stunning. And we carried in the wood stain from the floors onto the ceiling. We did a transition on the floor. So there's the wood floor, and then we did this brass transition. And then you'll see that brass again as we transitioned to limestone in the shower area. DeWinter Metalworks custom made these, and the craftsmanship that the McEwen team incorporated into the shower is magnificent. We did all of these panels on the wall that are solid slabs of marble, and then they trimmed them out of the marble to look like paneling that you would do out of wood. It's stunning. So I just want you to admire those details. And then off of the bathroom, we have his and her closets. In hers, we did these really pretty glass front cabinets with a curtain behind and an oak island, and mixed the cream painted with the wood. And then we even did a grass cloth wallpaper on the ceiling. In his closet, it's definitely a bit moodier. We did the dark stain on all of the cabinetry, and then we incorporated a charcoal gray grass cloth on the back of the mirror section and onto the ceiling. One thing I love about the layout of this home is that The gym is actually connected to the primary bathroom. This is the most beautiful gym. And then there's even a wellness area connected to this with a cold plunge and a sauna. A quick stop at the powder bathroom before we head upstairs. We actually did 2 different wall finishes because there's a door separating the toilet from the vanity. We actually converted an antique dresser into a vanity. So at the top of the stairs, you get this really strong asymmetry happening in the architecture. This is the girls' lofts, and I love that sometimes imperfect shapes give us an opportunity to create coziness. And then anytime I have a lot of feminine details, I love to incorporate an accent that has something a bit heavier. This hallway leads to a lot of kids' spaces, but before we get there, there is this incredible upstairs laundry room. One of the coolest features is the architecture of a skylight. I wanted to dress up the skylight by adding these steel cross beams and then hanging the lights off of that, and I love the effect that that gives, but it really functions well because we have 3 sets of washers and dryers up here. And then across the way, we have the bunk room. And because the bunk room is for guests, we wanted the color palette to be pretty gender neutral. And then we upholstered all of the headboards and the sides with fabric. It's really cool because when you walk into the space, it actually dampens the sound, which is great when you have a million kids jumping around. Then the bathroom adjoining this, we carried in the oak that you see throughout the rest of the home. And then one thing I'd love to do to kind of just take the tile designs to another level, instead of just doing a mosaic wall to wall, which I do love, in here we decided to do a border. All right, so we'll keep moving down the hallway. We have a few girls' rooms. We actually have 5 girls' rooms. And I wanted to point out that in these hallways, we did grass cloth and then painted the ceiling this beautiful blue color, and it just adds some color to spaces where you can't add a lot of furniture and textiles. So then headed into the first girls' room. In this space, we have a lot of girls, and they mostly all wanted pink and cream and then a little bit of blue. So in order to differentiate each space, we started with the walls and different combinations. So each room is a combination of paneling and plaster, or wallpaper and paneling, and that allowed us to give them the colors that they all wanted, but in different ways. We went shopping with our clients and found all of these fabrics that really represented the girls. And one thing I'm loving is a repeated effect. Rather than just doing it on the headboard, we'll repeat that fabric on a pillow, and I think it makes that textile really stand out. Then we did built-ins with a freestanding desk between. Then the bathroom in here is one of my favorites in the home for a few different reasons. One, the floors. And then we did an oak vanity so that we're getting some connection with the rest of the home. And then we did this really beautiful steel door enclosure, but we did it in a color to match the trim. And then the tile work in here is fantastic. So you can take a simple white tile and dress it up by incorporating some moldings. We did white tile on all of these walls, but then you'll see we outlined it like we would do woodwork down a hallway or in this bedroom. All right, headed into this room. To mix it up, we did the paneling lower here instead of all the way up the walls, and then we made this all about the pattern on the wallpaper. Instead of doing a built-in with a freestanding desk like we did in the other bedroom, we did this completely built-in and decided to make it asymmetrical on purpose so that when you walked into the bedroom, it felt open on the desk. Most of the bedrooms have window seats, and so we incorporated sconces and cushions and a mix of textiles. In this bathroom here, the visual is all about this reeded front vanity, and then we did a curved backsplash on the marble behind. Okay, so before we hit the playroom that you're getting a peek of here, we're going to head into another bedroom. So we've seen a few pink bedrooms, but this daughter actually wanted a lot of soft blues and creams. She really wanted this to be bit more inspired by the beach, but we obviously wanted it to also feel connected to the rest of the home. So we blended the styles. This bolster even has some seashells incorporated into it. And then this really cool detail that I'll point out here, we designed this custom detail that's on the base frame of the drawers. All right, enter the playroom of all playrooms. When we saw that on the plans, we had this pitched roof, I knew that it was my opportunity to do a tented room. This has been on my design bucket list for years. The talent required to get all of these stripes to line up, upholster all the walls, and then create the tent and then the scallop, it just turned out perfect. And then beyond this little Dutch door is a play kitchen that we designed to mimic the kitchen downstairs, if you can believe that. All right, we have 2 more girls' bedrooms and then we'll head to the boys' wings. This room it is magnificent. There's butterflies on the wallpaper and we mixed patterns. So there's diamonds and stripes and florals and mini florals, even on the lampshades, stripes and ginghams. But we've done it in a really thoughtful way so it still felt soothing, which was what our client wanted their home to feel like. A fantastic bathroom with a butter yellow vanity and then the shower bath combo of dreams. There are little animals on the tile. We have a brass shower enclosure and then the tub actually is built into the shower. We did paneling instead of wallpaper in this bedroom. And instead of just doing the paneling the same color on all the walls, we did it in a 2-tone that then ties into the big statement, which is this bed that has this crown canopy valance detail. And we've even done this double-sided. So you get floral on the outside and then there's this really pretty stripe on the back. There's vintage roller skates in there and little details and tchotchkes, and they really all have meaning because our team interviewed each of the children. And then we designed this really pretty vanity to have a hand-painted detail on the cabinet fronts. And we opened up one side of the walls to do a window on the interior of the space. So this is letting some of that light into the space. So now we're going to head down the library hall and into the boys' wing. We decided to lean into the fact that this is a windowless space and just create a loungy vibe. We did this really interesting combination on the rest of the walls. So we did grass cloth above and then we did paneling below and then we painted the chair rail the same color as the cabinets. And really, when you look around, we've used a lot of sports memorabilia. How we did that is we were really mindful about the scale of how we spaced everything on the walls and used different mediums rather than overly clutter it. Then we have 2 boys' rooms and both mirror each other in a lot of ways with some subtle differences. So I think, again, we even incorporated a floor fan. Our client was like, he can't sleep without a fan, so you gotta find a cool one. And we did, and I think, again, just making sure that everything is well selected and placed, but a lot of these things are very practical and very personal to the client. I love the industrial look. We've connected it to the rest of the home because we've carried some of the materials you see in other spaces. Now we'll head over to the other bedroom. It has oak paneling on the walls, but we did green grass cloth on the walls and ceiling, and we did a striped headboard, and the layout in here was a little bit asymmetrical. So the sleeping area is over here and then we have a little bit of extra space. Then the adjoining bathroom has marble floors, but then again, we took it in a more industrial direction. This is something we do a lot in our designs when there's a connected bathroom. We'll pick one color and incorporate it in a subtle accent, whether that's the tile or a wallpaper or even just in a hand towel so that the spaces feel like they belong together. While I love so many of the big moments in this home, it's some of the smaller, quieter ones that really speak to me. And this area here by the stairs is one of my favorites. These stairs lead to the guest wing of the home. The curved staircase is so stunning. And then we created this vignette here with found objects, old planters, even this old swan that just brings this home to a really special place. You walk up these beautiful curved stairs and this is the guest lounge, and we decided to lean into the shape of those stairs by having the built-in follow the curvature. So it has this great slope and it houses the TV. And then we did an orientation of furniture that really just follows the fact that this is a long, narrow space. But then we wanted to add some dimensions, so we installed sconces. Otherwise, this might feel a little flat. And then in this bathroom, we did limestone on the floors and the oak that you've seen in other spaces throughout the home. Rather than just doing an added mirror, we connected it to the vanity, and I love this effect, especially with how narrow these are. I think it just makes everything feel more substantial. And then we had really strong slope ceiling, so it feels like this little attic shower and tub. We did do a little marble trim to break up the tiles. I love what the architecture team did here, where the cabinets are recessed into this space, and then we decided to really lean into the curves. And then you come into the bedroom, and we wrapped the room in this striped grass cloth. There's texture to the wallpaper. Obviously, we have these amazing windows that we're working with, but keeping everything light, like just light layered textiles, so just fresh and inviting for anyone who stays here. So just off of the great room is the theater room. When our client told me that that's where he wanted to locate the theater room originally, I was like, why on earth wouldn't we put this in the basement? But now that it's done, I totally get it and am in full support, because how fun is it that you can just hop over and watch a movie in this incredible theater room? We took inspiration from restaurants, and we did navy walls, a mix of plaster and upholstery and the paneling so that we could dampen the sound, incorporate the screens. And then every single chair gets a little bit different plaid fabric, so that we're adding some personality to the space, especially with all the uniformity of the chairs. We've entered the fun zone, starting with the theater. We're gonna head downstairs to the basement. So you walk down the stairs and into the game area. We wanted this to not feel as light and airy as upstairs, and just embrace that it's a little darker down here, even though we do have big windows. And we carried that color on to this kitchen. And one of the coolest details is the leaded glass. We have these pull-out trays for entertaining. Did these little ottomans behind, so that people can sit and use this as a table for eating as well. We really just leaned into the sectionals, and they're taking up a lot of the room for decor. And so we added these lights, and then did a dark blue on all of the walls with a wallpaper above. And then these really cool doors have this swoop detail that reminds you of what's happening in the great room and in the other spaces. And beyond this is the bowling alley, the most sophisticated bowling alley there ever was. We hung 20 sconces. The builder did an awesome job. Every single one of those stars is a fiber optic cable that had to be strung through the ceiling and snipped, and then the plaster team had to then plaster around each of those. And then a personal moment, this is our client's childhood bowling alley. We framed this really cute picture of poppin' pins. In the barn, we have a basketball court, and it's like an entertaining barn because it can double as a space to throw parties. That's why we did a kitchen over here. It's behind these tempered glass steel doors, so you can close them and play basketball. I take this kitchen in my own home, and it's just in the basketball barn. Then I'll take you through to our client's office. This office is part office, part lounge, and part conference room. And the idea here is that we were going to wrap the entire room in one color, but do it in different treatments. So we have paneling on all of the walls in here, and then we have a dark stain on the ceiling, tongue and groove. When we were doing the drawings early on, I really wanted to not just end the built-in right here where it's obvious. I wanted it to just climb into that vaulted space, and I said, you know what? We need to design this and make sure we put some sailboats here. And then it turns out that the sailboat has meaning to our client. There are mementos from growing up, from work successes, and memories of favorite moments in sports. Clearly, sports are a theme throughout the home. And then, of course, some vintage treasures throughout as well. And then over on this side, We have the conference room with a built-in kitchenette area. One detail that I want to point out is the chunky shelf that we designed. So they're marble and then they have this footed detail underneath, and I love that you're getting that play of proportion. It's interesting and it's sculptural and feels really nice against some of these curved lines. This home is filled with custom pieces or special made to order pieces. I think it's those details when you're working with a designer, you get to play with all of those custom extras.